A crowded city square at noon suddenly plunges into pitch black darkness. People gasp as the sun seems to shine like the stars of the night sky, yet the light of the world is gone. In the abrupt darkness, you can hear car horns blaring and glass shattering from confused accidents. In the distant sky, you see a vague humanoid silhouette glowing until it begins to scintillate brilliantly like a figure from a legend. Could it be? Could it be stealing all the light from the planet like a black hole while being as bright as the sun? This is Necrozma. It is able to absorb all the light in a world, yet energy in the form of light cannot be destroyed. Where is all that light going? Light is the propagation of energy, so Necrozma must be converting that energy somehow, right? With all that energy being stockpiled in Necrozma, it must be growing in some unthinkably immense way. Also, what happens when Necrozma has reached its climax? According to the Ether Foundation, Necrozma are reminiscent of the Ultra Beasts. It has been decided that Necrozma are not themselves Ultra Beasts, as they do not gain strength from wreaking destruction. Rather, they display their overwhelming strength instinctually and absorb all light in an area relentlessly. They are speculated to have driven the Ultra Beasts from their dimensions in their quest to unite with Pokémon harboring limitless energy. The very humans who injured the Necrozma, on whose light they relied, sealed it away in a tower. The descendants of this nation assert that the power of Z crystals is directly connected to Necrozma and may even be fragments of their true form, which is interpreted as Ultra Necrozma. As a result, when the power from these crystals inundates Necrozma, they can transform into the godlike being known colloquially as the Blinding One. Due to their ability to emanate radiation so powerful, they can incinerate objects as far as 30 kilometers away. Necrozma can continuously confine the light of an entire planet in a mass the size of a crane for an indefinite length of time. The power of Ultra Necrozma scrapes the limit of my imagination. How powerful would Necrozma really be if it consumed all light on Earth? Can light be trapped in a vessel? If that's possible, how much energy can be stored in one place? Lastly, what would happen if such a high concentration of energy existed? The sun is unthinkably powerful. Every second, the earth is bombarded with invisible rays that have enough energy to provide for humanity for 2.5 hours. In other words, it takes just 1 hour of the sun existing for Earth to receive all the energy humanity needs for an entire year. Meanwhile, the Earth is just a tiny speck that intercepts a billionth of all the sun's energy. However, Necrozma aren't said to consume the light of an entire star, so we don't have to amplify Necrozma's power by a factor of 1 billion. The raw energy landing on the Earth in 1 second is about 100 quadrillion joules. That energy is spread over the Earth every single second without fail. When you stand on a beach, the energy from an average sized star 150 million kilometers away is heating your entire body with infrared radiation and ionizing your cells with UV radiation. These are just parts of all the different kinds of light that come from the sun. There is obviously the light which enables us to see, which is formerly known as visible light, which is kind of a misnomer because we don't see the light directly, but rather the effects thereof. Others include radio waves, X-rays and gamma rays, but most of these are blocked by the upper atmosphere. If all this energy were concentrated into one spot, it would be like the most powerful bomb ever detonated, the Tsar Bomber. You may have learned about the bomb that practically annihilated Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The Tsar Bomber was 50 times more powerful and would have been enough to have easily erased half of Japan. Now remember, this energy is falling on the earth every second, so Japan will be off the map in just 2 seconds. In just 2 days, all the earth's continents will be utterly destroyed. Truly, the sun is a deadly laser. Imagine if Necrozma, a being just about as tall as the world's tallest person, transferred so much destructive energy every second. Hold that thought. Right now, our first reality check is overdue. We have created a device that matches and even exceeds the energy received by Earth from the sun in 1 second. Let's not forget that Necrozma will be swallowing the energy of a Tsar Bomber every second. Light is not the same as matter though, right? The Tsar Bomber was made of physical components which are not energy, right? Consider what happens when an atomic bomb explodes. Maybe you didn't realize this, but it's not just a simple chemical explosion like with TNT. Otherwise, atomic bombs would be only 10,000 times more explosive and not 10 million times. Instead, the nuclei of atoms of radioactive elements decay uncontrollably into more stable products. This still sounds like a chemical reaction until you realize that the mass of the product somehow does not equal the mass of the reactants. This is not a chemical reaction, it is a nuclear reaction, and the lost mass is directly converted into pure energy according to E equals mc squared. Even a tiny mass can unleash a tremendous quantity of energy because of the c² factor, which multiplies the mass by 100 quadrillion. In other words, 1 milligram of lost mass would release 100 billion joules of energy. So, if atomic nuclei could release energy when they split in a term known as nuclear fission, could the reverse also be true? Could energy be channeled to make 2 nuclei come together to form a larger atomic nucleus? If you said nuclear fusion, you have deduced the next reality check. All the energy landing on Earth could theoretically be collected into one place. One way to do this would be by turning the energy into so-called rest mass in the form of matter-antimatter pairs. Working backwards, all the energy landing on the Earth would equate to 2 kilograms of new mass per second. This doesn't mean Earth is increasing in mass every second, because almost all of the energy is radiated back into the atmosphere and space. However, there is a major problem with this idea. Pair production requires photos with energies around 1 billion times greater than those provided by sunlight, making direct conversion of solar radiation into matter impossible. A more established theory is that Necrozma places wormholes far above the surface of the Earth to intercept the light that will strike it. In this case, Necrozma would place trillions of wormholes, all with a diameter of about 10 meters near the Lagrange point between the Sun and the Earth, 1.5 million kilometers towards the Sun. A Lagrange point is a position in space within the interaction of the gravitational fields of 2 celestial bodies, like the Sun and the Earth, or the Earth and the Moon, where the gravitational influence on a small body like an artificial satellite becomes stable. To create a wormhole though, Necrozma would need to access negative energy. Normally, gravity would pinch the wormholes closed before anything could pass through. But negative energy would halt the effect of gravitational collapse. This can be realized by bringing 2 uncharged surfaces extremely close to each other. The resulting Casimir effect can generate instances of negative energy. Alternatively, Necrozma would muster enough psychic-type energy to suppress the formation of virtual particles near the Lagrange point to ensure the stability of the wormholes. It would then be able to replenish its energy with the concentrated beam of light it receives. Wormholes are real, but if we could also create regions of negative energy density, we'll be able to make wormholes that are large enough to be useful. Our final reality check is an unstable one. Wormholes can technically exist. Currently, they only exist as a solution to Einstein's mathematical descriptions of space-time. However, exotic matter with negative energy density would be able to keep wormholes open so they can be traversed. Nuclear fusion, wormholes, antimatter, how do they all link together? You will remember how I said that sunlight does not have enough energy to become a pair of particles? Yeah, I got that, so Necrozma's law is impossible? Well, what I really meant is that the energy that reaches the surface is too low. Gamma rays, which are produced by the sun, have enough energy to create these pairs of particles. By becoming a literal star, effectively, Necrozma would be able to harness nuclear fusion. Stars shine because gravity crushes matter until fusion ignites. Necrozma don't use gravity, but they don't need to. Oh, because of ultra wormholes. Exactly. Wormholes solve the collection problem. Necrozma cannot simply attract light. That would require it to be a black hole. Instead, it reroutes light before it ever reaches Earth. By placing trillions of microscopic wormholes near the Sun-Earth Lagrange point, Necrozma intercepts the solar radiation that would otherwise strike the planet. From Earth's perspective, the light simply never arrives. From the photon's perspective, it has taken the shortest available path through space-time, a geodesic. Those wormholes exit near Necrozma, delivering an energy flow of roughly 100 quadrillion joules every second. That corresponds, via Einstein's equations, to roughly 2 kilograms of mass per second. Not as matter, but as stored energy with inertia. That sounds like it should immediately explode. It would if Necrozma tried to store it passively. But this is where fusion becomes essential. Fusion allows Necrozma to process incoming energy. Low energy sunlight is transformed into extreme internal temperatures. Energy density rises. This causes gamma radiation to be produced. Gamma radiation eliminates the problem of sunlight being a million times less powerful than is needed for particle creation. Technically, they can have energies in the millions of electron volts, which exceeds the rest mass energies of both the electron and positron combined. Some of the radiation would enter the regime of trillions of electron volts, in which case they would produce proton-antiproton pairs. When these matter-antimatter particles are formed, most annihilate immediately, releasing energy again. But a fraction can be managed, recycled, or used to stabilize the system. In short, the wormholes supply the fuel, fusion concentrates it. Nothing is created from nothing. Energy is simply transformed into forms that would normally only occur inside stars. So, is Necrozma trapping light like the sun? What do you mean, like the sun? Doesn't light produced by the core take like millions of years to exit the sun? Okay, true. Light produced by the sun's core can take hundreds of thousands to millions of years to finally escape, because it isn't traveling straight out. It is constantly being absorbed and re-emitted by a dense plasma, bouncing around like a drunkard in a crowded room. This only happens because the sun is about 1 million kilometers across. By contrast, Necrozma is only about a few meters tall. In the sun, fusion happens because immense gravitational forces squeeze matter together. The sun is so massive that its own weight creates the pressure needed to fuse hydrogen. Instead of gravitational confinement, Necrozma relies on energy confinement. The incoming solar energy, redirected by wormholes, heats and compresses plasma around the Necrozma to extreme conditions, similar to how fusion reactors on Earth attempt to use magnetic fields to hold hot plasma in place. A tokamak, for instance, is a kind of experimental fusion reactor that traps plasma with electromagnetic forces because it obviously can't rely on gravity. Necrozma will be doing something similar, but on a far more extreme and exotic scale. You've mentioned exotic matter and negative energy a few times already. What does this practically mean for Necrozma? We know that energy cannot be negative. Heat has energy, light has energy, mass is a form of energy. In everyday experience, energy density is always greater than zero. Quantum physics allows regions of space to have less energy than the surrounding vacuum under specific conditions. Not less energy than zero in an absolute sense, but less than the baseline energy of empty space itself. This is what physicists call negative energy density. This differentiates Necrozma from stars, black holes, etc. With psychic-type power, Necrozma can manipulate space-time without gravity, but by using copious amounts of negative energy. The Casimir effect only produces inconsequential amounts of negative energy, but Necrozma could create vast regions where those fluctuations are deliberately controlled. In accordance with quantum field theory, Necrozma could squeeze fields to engineer local zones of reduced vacuum energy. Also, the reason Necrozma's mass is not increasing continuously is that it is using that energy to hold the trillions of wormholes open. Somewhere along this process, Necrozma becomes Ultra Necrozma, right? Ultra Necrozma is the ultimate form of Necrozma, and I will talk about it a bit more later. Consider that Necrozma was already capable of using light, evidenced by its ability to use photon geyser and prismatic laser. They can be understood as highly collimated flows of high-energy photons using the prisms on Necrozma's body, similar in principle to gamma-ray bursts. Necrozma concentrates electromagnetic radiation using extreme field control, compressing light into narrow channels where its energy density becomes massively destructive. In its base form, Necrozma is able to store and redirect energy. But when the inflow of solar radiation rises beyond a critical threshold, the internal plasma surrounding Necrozma enters an entirely new regime, known colloquially as the blinding one. Ultra Necrozma. Yeah, most likely it would exist as a form of exotic, ultra-hot, magnetically confined plasma infused with regions of negative energy density. It would be as hot as the core of a star, which would make its presence alone begin to tear holes in the atmosphere and ground. Theoretically, it should be able to use an enhanced version of photon geyser dubbed light that burns the sky, that has enough explosive power to disintegrate an entire planet in less time than it takes to blink. Wait, really? According to my estimations, in the first microseconds, the atmosphere along the beam's path would be stripped into a glowing plasma column, expanding violently outward faster than sound. Shockwaves would race across the sky, flattening everything in their path like the shock from an atomic bomb. As the radiation strikes the planet's surface, several layers of the crust would be converted instantly into superheated gas, erupting upward like the explosive eruption of a supervolcano. The sudden thermal expansion would send seismic waves tearing through the ground, cracking continents apart. Deep in the earth, the flood of energy would deposit heat faster than it can be conducted away, so pressure would build catastrophically. If the total energy released approached even a small fraction of Earth's gravitational binding energy, the planet would no longer be able to hold itself together. Massive chunks of crust and mantle would be blasted off into space. Oceans would flash boil. The atmosphere would be stripped away in a global firestorm. What remains would be a shattered, glowing remnant, half planet, half expanding cloud of debris. Is there just one Necrozma? Why do you ask? Well, suppose there were two. Two. Yes, two. Even more. Just like it would seem like there are many Nihiligo in Ultra Deep Sea, maybe there could be many Necrozma. If that were the case, the energy density could be reduced significantly, so it wouldn't be nearly as catastrophic. Is that so? If multiple Necrozma each intercepted only part of Earth's sunlight, the energy density per Pokémon drops. Ultra Necrozma might not even be able to form. On paper, this looks safer. See, I should receive some kind of medal for that. Remember how Necrozma feed? They don't absorb light like a sponge. They reroute it through space-time using ultra wormholes. So now you don't just have one network of wormholes near the Lagrange point. You have multiple, with each one competing to intercept photons first. That's not a problem, right? It totally is. Now the wormhole networks would begin overlapping, interfering, and reinforcing one another's space-time distortions. Negative energy regions would have to expand to stabilize both systems. Quantum fields would be suppressed over a larger volume, bigger than any one Necrozma could handle. All of a sudden, Necrozma would be tearing holes in space-time faster than it can be corrected. The Necrozma could just work together to... Excuse me, work together? Necrozma? I suppose there's a clear reason why none are seen together, as they could end reality. Ultra Necrozma could already devastate worlds in a literal flash. Imagine if there were 2 or more Ultra Necrozma. I guess you're right. So the safest number of Necrozma is 0. You know, that reminds me, I've spent 0 minutes at the gym. Bye for now. Necrozma is an international threat because of its latent power. The Ultra Recon Squad has worked with the Ether Foundation to devise countermeasures for the second darkest day. If Necrozma is seen in clear view, it would already be too late. Necrozma's source of power originates from its utilization of ultra wormholes. However, negative energy states are extremely fickle and require an immense burden of psychic type power to maintain. These states can be disrupted by perturbing the quantum fields therein, which would cause them to collapse back into normal 0-point energy, which is the energy in a normal vacuum. How would this work? First, wormholes make noise in the form of gravitational lensing when they appear. Telescopes pointing towards the Lagrange points can measure patterned disturbances in space-time. At the same time, the quantum vacuum itself would begin to behave strangely. Regions of negative energy density suppress normal vacuum fluctuations. Instruments sensitive to high-energy particles and radiation would detect sudden drops in 0-point energy. Once detected, the challenge would not be to destroy the wormholes directly, but to remove the conditions that keep them open. They only remain open because negative energy is continuously holding their throats open. In quantum physics, every type of particle corresponds to a field spread throughout space-time. Even in a vacuum, those fields fluctuate. Exotic matter is created when those fluctuations are forced into a low energy configuration. In practice, the countermeasure system developed by the Ultra Necrozma Squad and the ETH Foundation consists of a network of space-based platforms positioned around the Lagrange point. Each platform would project overlapping fields of high-frequency radiation and particle pulses designed to destabilize exotic energy arrangements. Rather than targeting wormholes one by one, the system would flood the region with controlled quantum noise, restoring the vacuum to its natural energetic state. Necrozma is not a solar panel, nor is it a black hole. It is made of exotic matter and is able to fundamentally and precisely control space-time to produce trillions of wormholes at once, to funnel the light of the world directly into its body. Its true form is light incarnate, which, just like a true star, uses nuclear fusion to shine blindingly with enough heat to turn anything into a plasma in an instant. Of course, not all the light on Earth comes from the sun. There are also light Pokémon, one of which is so bright that it can be seen from space.